everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Brittney Bundles podcast. I am really pleased. I'm really pleased in how God has been working through me. I'm really pleased in the lessons and the experiences that I've been blessed to go through. I'm really happy at the platform that we're on, how the platform is growing. On my Instagram, I showed a little bit of the behind the scenes, if you will, of the podcast and how it's not only being listened to in the US, but it's being listened to in other parts of the world, and how there's so many people that I'm being connected with. And there's so many different businesses that I'm able to work with in relation to us all wanting to become our very best and learning. One thing that I've learned this year is that I don't have any power besides what God has blessed me with. And today I really want to take a moment to talk about forgiveness in business. And this is something that I struggled with for a while. I struggled with forgiveness in business and also in my personal life. And I was a person that thought that my personal life and my business life are completely separate, and that one side of my life, so my personal life, and the other side of my life, so my business life, had nothing to do with each other. And that even if I went through something in my personal life, it wouldn't have an effect on my business. And how wrong was I? How wrong was I? So I'm going to talk today a little bit about how the two are connected. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how not forgiving and how not finding forgiveness can not only starve you from the peace that's needed to advance you to the next level in your business, but it can also stunt your growth, not just in your personal life, but also in your business. And so a lot of times when we're looking at building our life, we think about, okay, maybe I want to start investing, or maybe I want to start a new business, or maybe I want to look at different ways to bring more income or multiple streams of income to my family. Maybe I want to look at building a legacy. And we look at all of these resources, right? Which is, there's nothing wrong with it. But we look at different how-to videos, and we look at different advertising and branding tips, and we dive deep into how we can get more sales. And we forget that a lot of times our business is not succeeding, not because we don't have the right branding, not because we didn't have the right website, not because we need more schooling in the business arena, but because our heart and our mind aren't in the right place to allow the growth to happen. And how many of us know that everything needs to be aligned? Everything needs to be aligned for it to work in its best potential. And so I used to believe that everything that I did was a result from me. Not saying that I didn't believe in God, because I've always believed in God. I come from a religious background. However, going through life, I can say honestly that God was not my first priority in everything that I did. I would ask God for certain things or talk to God about certain things, but I wasn't in tune with Him enough to be able to understand what I needed to do in that moment. Sometimes we need to wait on God. Sometimes we need to wait until He tells us what we need to do. And that was something that I wasn't used to doing. And so today I want to talk about forgiveness. Today I want to talk about how not forgiving is stunting some of our businesses from growing, is stunting some of our mentalities and our mindsets. Let's talk about this today. Let's spend a few moments and let's dive right in. Welcome back to the Brittney Bundles podcast. All right. So like I just mentioned, we're talking about forgiveness in business. And before we actually dive into the points that I have outlined today for this topic, I want to, talk a little bit. So have you ever been angry or disappointed with circumstances or situations or even relationships in business? If you answer yes, then this is a good podcast for you. Have you decided to not trust or work with a certain person, a certain company or brand over a misunderstanding that, if resolved, could possibly lead to a collab that heals more than you were hurt? A lot of times we find ourselves being hurt from a misunderstanding. We find ourselves being hurt because there was confusion in the circumstance. There was confusion in the experience. But what I've learned to do is to let go and let God. And so I'm amazed, like I mentioned before, in the way that God is pulling my life, because when I first started my entrepreneurial journey on YouTube under Brittney Bundles, you could have never told me that in a few years I would be talking on my podcast about God. And I know there are some people that are going to be turned off by it and say, you know what, this is not what I came for. But the truth is The truth is, there's nothing that I can do without God. There's nothing that I can learn efficiently and be able to teach effectively without mentioning God. I've tried it. I've tried to go through my even business career with being cautious and censored around when I talked about God and how I introduced God. And I'm too preachy right now, to the point that I say, you know what? I can't sugarcoat it. If you want transparency, then that's what I have to give you. And so it's not me. It's not me that knows everything. And it's not me that understands everything that I'm doing. And it's not me that has all of the knowledge needed to help me succeed in business or even help others. But it's ultimately God. And the closer that I get to God, the more that I realize flaws within myself, the more that I'm able to look at flaws within my business, the more that I'm able to say, you know what, Brittney, you don't have it, and that's okay. You don't have it all figured out. But as long as you're seeking God first, a lot of things are going to come in alignment. And that's what's been happening for my business. That's what's been happening for my life. You'll be amazed if I told you everything that has happened in my life, even just within the span of 3 months. There's been so much that God has been taking me through that has helped me. And so it makes sense now that the theme of this podcast has been circled around when my mentality changed, my business grew. Because that's true. That's true for not only me, but for you. So it's changing our mindset that's going to bring us to the next level. It's making sure that we're aligned correctly. That's going to bring us to the next level. It's trusting God. It's listening to God. It's walking in faith. That's going to bring us to the next level in anything that we do, including our business. So the first thing that I want to talk about is harboring anger can stunt your business. Harboring anger can stunt your business. What do you mean by that? Let's make it a little personal, okay? So when I started my salon, when I first decided to go ahead and create Bad Chick Hair Salon in my city, I was very, very hurt by the lack of support that I experienced. That was one of the reasons that I talked about the lack of support so often, and that I still do to this day, because I understood how it felt to put everything, your heart, your mind, your money, your time into something that you're thinking is going to benefit so many people, and that has the potential to touch so many other people's lives. Because I don't know how many of you know this, but when I started my salon, I had a vision of not only doing hair in the salon, but there were so many different things that I wanted to do that would have brought empowerment to the community. So I saw, or as I saw it. Okay. And so I had a bigger plan. I had a bigger idea, a bigger objective than to only do hair in my salon. Was there anything wrong with only doing hair in the salon? Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, that is what a lot of salons do. However, I saw a different vision. And so I thought that when I launched and when I opened my doors, that I was going to receive more support than I actually received. And I was hurt. I would reach out to certain radio stations, and certain radio stations wouldn't have me on, or would tell me that it cost this much for me to get on. And even though I wanted to share the information about the opportunities that I had, I'm like, man, you know, I don't have this amount of money, especially just opening. When you first open a business, how many of you know that it costs some money? It costs some money, especially when it's a brick and mortar location. And so I didn't have the funds or the resources at that time to put more money into talking on a radio station for my city about the opportunities that I was offering. I also remember reaching out to certain groups and events and not getting the feedback or the reaction that I thought I should have received, and I was hurt from it. I also remember feeling like I was betrayed in the salon. You know, there were certain instances that would happen, and certain people that I allowed in the salon that did things and that said things that hurt me and that took me by surprise. And I'm like, wow, I really expected more support than what I'm actually receiving. I expected more respect than what I've been shown, and I'm expected more love than what I'm feeling. And so I began to become angry. Now, everyone acts different in their anger. So not everyone's going to be, angry the same way. When I'm angry, I've done some things when I'm angry that I'm not proud of at all. But a lot of times in business, I find myself really keeping some of those feelings inside. So whereas in my personal life, I may come to you and say, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't have done me like this. Let me tell you how you hurt me. I may have thought that way, but in business, I've always had a different way. I'm like, you know what? I don't like how this is going in the salon, but I'm not going to say it this way, or I'm going to just keep it to myself, or I'm going to harbor those feelings. So I found myself harboring anger. I found myself not only being sad, but being mad. And not just at one person, but it reflected on my city. And I said, you know what? From now on, I'm not going to focus on just making sure that I'm providing and contributing to my city. I'm going to go pretty much every place other than my city to want to help. And it wasn't until God put someone in my life to explain to me that there's still work in my city that needs to be done. And just because I had an experience where I was hurt, just because I had an experience where I felt backstabbed, just because I had an experience where I wasn't supported, doesn't mean that my work wasn't valid there. And that's what I had to get to the position of realizing. Everything happens for a reason. Everything truly works together for good for those who love the Lord. So everything worked out for the best. Everything worked out for the best. So now I'm able to look back on the situation and no longer have anger, but understanding. How many understand too that a lot of times when you have anger, it's because of misunderstanding. It's because you're not in the right mind frame. The person that you may have been arguing with or feeling these feelings toward are not in the right mind frame. And you both are just having a conflict of interest. You may not understand why, they may not understand why. But I realized with myself, and I had to be honest and say, Brittney, you're angry. You're upset. You're upset. But that anger can stunt your business from growing. So instead of me getting into different groups in my city, and instead of me wanting to work with different people in my city, I said to myself, I've already experienced how it is working with my city. I've already experienced how it is working with people that grew up with me. I've already seen how people feel and think about me, the people that are close to me. I already have seen that they don't really respect my vision. So why am I going to spend time? I've already seen that. But God has really been able to open my mind and my mentality to say, yes, your feelings were hurt, but I'm not done with you here. And what you did was not in vain. But I had a different plan or a bigger plan for you. And so when you really realize in business and in everything that you do in life, that it's not about just our satisfaction. It's not about just making you feel good. It's not about just liberating you, but it's a bigger picture. You have a bigger purpose than just you. When you realize that it's not about you, a lot of things come together. And so I began realizing that no, it's not just about me. And that there were certain things that were necessary for me to go through, for me to be able to talk to even you today on this podcast. God's showing me, he's teaching me. And I can't keep him out of certain lessons because I have nothing to talk about. I can't say that I've learned this on my own. I can't say that I was able to forgive those who didn't support me or who backstabbed me in business or who didn't believe in me in business. I can't say that I forgave them on my own. But God. And so forgiving allows your mind, your heart, your spirit to be free of harboring those negative thoughts and the pain from an experience that you've gone through. And so in order for me to be healed, I had to forgive. And I had to stop having such a hard heart. So instead of me saying, nope, she ain't support me, so that's why we don't talk. I forgive you. I forgive you. I no longer have an attitude of, well, you didn't want to talk to me before, so don't come to me now for an interview. You didn't want to hear from me then, so don't come to me now. There are people that I've reached out to that did not want to interview me, that have reached out after the fact and offered me an interview. That's God. And I could have said, you know what, because they didn't offer me that interview before, don't come now. But that would have stunted my business. And so there's a lot of us that are looking at our own situations through our own understanding, not asking God for help on anything, not asking for his clarity. And we're saying, you know what, I don't like this person because they did this to me. So because of that, I'm not working with them at all. Now, there are some people in business that you will feel that you shouldn't work with. And I don't believe that you are supposed to work with necessarily everyone. There are some things and some boundaries that you may say, you know what, This doesn't feel good to my spirit. I'm not supposed to be here right now with this person in business or in any other type of collaboration at this point. Maybe you have to ask God on that. But one thing that I didn't want to happen is I never want to allow hate, anger, or misunderstanding to stop me from doing what God called me to do. I never want to allow anything negative that I've gone through in my life to stunt my business or my personal life. So the first thing that I want to remind everyone is that forgiveness is key. I don't want to empower just a certain person. I don't want to empower a certain group, a certain city, a certain state. I want to be able to empower everyone that I come into contact with. And so in order for that to happen, I had to forgive. I forgive you. I forgave my city. Now, everyone in my city didn't wrong me. But I took that and I internalized it. And I said, wow, my city doesn't support me. Wow, my city wasn't there for me. And a lot of times, even though people from my city were there, it wasn't as much as I thought they would be there. And the number of people that supported me versus the number that didn't, they outweighed each other. And so it's very common for us to get hung up on the negative and shine a spotlight on the negative experiences and not the positive. So I was focused more on who didn't support me. And although I realized that there's a whole world out there, I focused more on the whole world and not necessarily my city, because I said, wow, I've tried it here, and they didn't support. Instead of looking at the truth and saying whether someone supported or not, whether they supported or not, there was a reason for everything. And so if I trust God, there's no reason for me to harbor anger. There's no reason for me to be mad, because God works it out. And what I thought was going to be possibly the end of my business was only the beginning. That's powerful. Did you hear what I said? What I thought was going to be the end or could possibly be the end of my business was just the beginning. I was reading the book of Job last night with my children. And one thing that I learned from that story, I love that story, by the way. One thing that I learned from that is God can bless you even more than what you thought your losses were. Let me say that a little better. God has the ability to give you back way more than what you lost. So I'm sitting here thinking, when I'm going through the salon and I'm deciding if I want to close the salon down or if I want to keep it going, what do I want to do? And I took a lot of losses. I paid for all new equipment. It was thousands of dollars. I paid my deposit. I paid in advance. Thousands of dollars. I paid to get out of my contract. Thousands of dollars. I paid for the carpet in the salon. Almost $1,000. I paid for the paint. I paid for the marketing. I paid for lots and lots of things. And so I'm thinking like, wow, I'm taking a loss. And not only that, but there are some things that I didn't pay for with money, but I paid for with my experience. I'm like, wow, I did all of this promoting, all of these, all of this time staying up and time going to the salon and all of these sacrifices that I made to not do what I wanted to do at that time, but to invest in the salon with my time and my ideas and my thoughts for it to end like this. And so initially I felt some anger. And if I stay with it, even though I don't really enjoy it any longer, then maybe possibly in the end, I may end up seeing my vision or seeing my goals or seeing my wants become reality. And then I had to think about it. Do you really want this? And so I went through a mixture of feelings, as a lot of us do through our business. We go through a mixture of feelings, and I can say that anger was one of them. But having that anger stopped me from a lot of different opportunities, because I wasn't able to see different opportunities because I had closed my mind off from working in a certain place. I'm done working in this city like this. I'm done. And being closer to God allowed me to realize that, yes, even though I took losses in my salon, I've gained so much more. God has blessed me with way more than I've lost. I've gained more not only mentally, not only spiritually, but also financially when I left the salon. When I left the salon, I gained more than what I was bent out of shape about losing. God can do it. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is learning how your personal life affects your business, even though you keep them separate. And this is something that I've recently learned because I was someone that went through life thinking, you know what, my personal life is my personal life. My business life is my business life. So regardless of anything that happens in my personal life, I'm still going to go to work because I still need to go to work. I still need to get my message out. I still need to make sure that I'm helping as many people as possible. I still need to be able to feed my children. And so I still need to go to work. And I was someone that believed that you keep those separate. And although you can to an extent, I still believe in making sure that you, in a sense, keep your business and your personal life separate. However, I do want to let you know that I've also learned that they are definitely connected. Because how you are feeling in your personal life can spill over to your business and vice versa. How you're feeling with your business can spill over to your personal life. And so becoming an all-around, well-rounded person not only has its benefits in your personal life, but also in your business. When I began to let go of some anger that I had, some disappointments that I had, I was able to not only work better and more efficiently in my business relationships, but I was also able to build some relationships in my personal life. Because my mentality had changed. Not saying that I forgot everything that happened, but I was no longer holding it over people's heads. Internally, through my mind, through conversation, through denying different collaborations. I was no longer holding that in my mind. Because I realized that God has a bigger purpose for me. God has a bigger job for me. That I don't have time to sit around and worry about all day who wronged me. I still have something to do. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the Passion of Christ that I watched with my children on Easter and how at any moment Jesus had the ability to say, I'm not going to go ahead and die on this cross because I'm going to worry about my disciple betraying me. And I'm going to let that take over everything. He had a choice, just like we do. But he chose not to allow that to stop him from fulfilling his purpose. And so I realized that we all have a purpose to fulfill. And a lot of times we are touching people through our business. You may not see it. You may not understand how, but we're touching people. I recently posted on my Facebook page a message that I got from someone that lives out of the United States. And that it was a blessing for me to receive that message because it showed me that every time I was getting on YouTube and I was thinking out different things to talk about and planning out my content, I was actually coaching someone else to launch their business. Did I know that? Not necessarily. I didn't know that I was speaking directly to her. I didn't know that I was helping her, and I'm not saying I was just only helping her, but you know what I mean? I didn't know this person, but God knew the person and God knew me. I just want to remind everyone that even for my business, I could not be where I'm at if I didn't allow God to work through me. So sometimes we make our business plan more complicated than it has to be. Sometimes we make our life more complicated than it has to be because we're trying to figure out our way and we're trying to figure out the way without including God. Without including God, without including forgiveness. We're trying to run through how to create more relationships through business, but we haven't even learned how to create relationships in our personal life. And we're thinking that they don't have anything to do with one another, but they do. They do. We're angry and we're wondering why certain things aren't happening for us. We're angry and we're wondering, wow, why is my business not growing at the speed I want it to grow at? Are you ready for your business to grow at the speed that you want it to grow at? And the truth is, God knew. He knew. He knew what was good for me at that time. And so what I've learned to do is not rely on my own understanding and not to go off of what I feel, because my feelings can be deceptive. And so when a lot of people come to me and they ask, how do I do this? I have to give the credit to God. Yes, there's different things that we can go over in your business, but ultimately it's mindset. It's mindset over branding material. I'm sorry, I have to say it. It's mindset over your website design. It's mindset over Google ads and Facebook ads. It's your mindset. It's your heart. It's your heart. And a lot of times, nothing we do in life will work until that is in line. This whole time, I've been going through life, trying to figure it out my way. Going off of what I think, what I heard, what someone else did, what I feel, what I think. And it's not until you realize that you don't have the answer and surrender that things start to come together, especially for me. So like I said, I went into business thinking I'm not going to be quote unquote controversial. I'm not going to talk about too many things that could have people turned off. I don't know if I want to mention God too many times. To saying I can't talk about my business without talking about God. I can't talk about my mindset changing without talking about God. I can't talk about my business growing without talking about God. I can't talk about me impacting others' lives without me talking about God. I can't talk about purpose without me talking about God. I can't talk about fulfillment without me including God. I can't do that because it has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with Him. And so I'm learning that forgiveness is necessary to get us to the next level. I forgive even those that wrong me. I forgive even those that betrayed me. Now, does that mean that I'm going to work with everyone in the same way? No, it doesn't. But it means that I forgive you. So I'm not going to allow my anger. I'm not going to allow my previous experiences to stop me from doing anything else in my community, anything else in my city, because I've let it go. I've let it go. So if you're harboring any hurt feelings or any anger, let it go. And I know it's easier said than done, but pray and ask God. Because if you're really wanting your business to succeed, if you really want to take your family to the next level, if you really want to see an improvement in your life, there's going to be more than making sure that you know how to hashtag on Instagram. There's more than making sure that you know how to hashtag on Twitter. And I'm just being honest. We're building our business on solid foundation. And in order to do that, we have to be right ourselves. We have to be right ourselves. I used to think that reading the Bible, praising God was for God's satisfaction only. I'm doing this to make God happy. And then I realized that it's for me because I can't see anything clearly without Him. So we talk about business all day and we'll continue to talk about business, but let's go back to the fundamentals. And you cannot have a fundamental in anything. You can't have starting blocks of anything in any industry without including God. And that's something that I didn't start my business off doing, including God in all my decisions, including God in my life, including God in my business, including God in the way that I interacted with people, including God in my relationships, including God in what I decided to do next. I didn't go in thinking like that. But that's what I'm saying, that the longer we stay in business and the longer that we live and the more opportunities that we come into contact with, the better it is. The better your life becomes, the more insightful you'll get. Not because you stayed in business for so long, because there are truly people that have been in business for years and that still don't understand basic principles. But it's when we allow God to work through us. So my business isn't just for my gain. My business isn't just for my happiness. My business isn't something that I'm just doing just to get paid. It's not just to grab a bag. It's not just to get a new house or a new car. But it's to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to be in alignment with God's plan. Because we never know who's watching us. We never know who we're helping. We never know who our business is really touching. Our business is bigger than us. I also want to talk about how anger takes energy. It takes energy to be angry with someone. Even in my personal life, I'll find myself being angry with someone and how much energy went into that. Conversations that I would have with someone else. I'm so angry with them. I'm so angry. Stay on the phone for maybe an hour and a half talking about how angry we are. And that took away the time and energy that I could have focused on building up myself, my business, and everyone else that I was coming into communication with. Forgiveness allows peace. I have peace. I used to think that starting a business, you had to hustle all the time. I got to be on the grind all the time. I got to keep working all the time. The bills don't stop for nobody. I got to make sure that I'm always doing something. And although it's great to work, I didn't have a balance to it. I didn't understand the benefit in working in peace versus working in desperation, versus working in, I need to do this right now so that I can pay my bill. I need to do this right now so that I can take it to the next level next year. There's a different feeling around working through peace. Peace. Peace is my new word. And with peace, I'm not always happy. I can't say that I'm always excited, or I can't say that I'm always feeling on top of the world, but I can say that I'm peaceful. And when you feel peace, there's nothing like it. And so I'm able to work in peace with my business. I don't feel like I have to jump at every single option that's put on my table. I don't feel like I have to make a quick, rash decision, because if I don't make it right now, then I won't ever be able to make it again. I have peace because I trust God. And I have peace because I realize that it's not about what I choose, but it's about what I choose to do through Him. So when you know, and when you take your hands off the wheel, and when you honestly look at your business and the overall impact and aspect that it can have, it becomes bigger than selling hair. It's bigger than selling bundles. It's actually bigger than even beauty. So peace. Peace is a very important part of the transformation of my business. Peace. When you have peace, you're able to stand still long enough to listen, to think, to respond back in a way that makes sense with your customers, with people that you interact with your friends, with your family. Peace. Another thing that I would have in my mind is I would have, well, they said no before, but now they're saying yes. Is that fake love? Is this fake love? Now you want me to come on and do an interview, but before you said no. Now you want to invest in my business, but before you didn't care about it. Now you want to work with me, but before you ain't care. Now you want to listen to my advice, but before it sound crazy. So no, stay over there. Keep the same energy, right? We've heard that before. Keep the same energy, because I only want to work with people that support me, right? That's the mentality that I had as well. And that was a mentality that stemmed from different hurt feelings that I experienced, and things that I didn't let go, and things that I haven't forgiven. Because you realize that sometimes people are not wanting to work with you for reasons that they don't even understand. Sometimes it's not always about what you see, but there's a spiritual battle. Sometimes it's not the right time for you to collab with the person that you're wanting to collab with. Sometimes it's not the right time for your business to take off like you think it should. And so it's not necessarily about fake love. And it's not necessarily about, well, you didn't support me then, so don't want me now. But it's about making sure that we're keeping our heart pure and clean, so that when opportunities do arise, we have the discernment and the understanding of, okay, this is what I should do, or this is what I shouldn't. But it isn't based off of anger, and it isn't based off of resentment, and it's not based on bad blood or bad feelings, because we've let that go. And realizing that the gifts that God placed inside of all of us is not just for people that are our best friends, or people that are our supporters, or people that have loved us since day one. And we have to realize that everyone's being worked on as well. So there may be some things that people may have thought about your business years ago that they don't think anymore. There may have been some things that people thought they saw through you and your business that they don't see anymore. And so grace. We talk about building relationships in business, but how can you build relationships with anger in your heart? How can you build pure relationships when you're not being pure yourself? And so it goes back to our mentality, and it goes back to checking ourselves constantly and making sure that we're walking right. Not about making sure that everyone else is okay. You're wrong. Yeah, you can give people advice, but we need to ultimately make sure that we're in the right place. And then everything else aligns. So I'm not worried, thank God, about how I'm going to pay my bills next month. I've been there before. I'm not worried about if I don't get a 9 to 5, what's going to happen to my family, because I trust God. And I see how he's building my business. I see how he's building me. So instead of my focus being on, I just want to build my business, it began to be on, I want to build me. I want to become better. What else can I learn? What else can I do? How else can I strengthen myself, my skills, my love for God, my love for people, my understanding, my relation? How can I do that? And a lot of us have businesses, but we don't really want to understand or learn how to really strengthen our skills to be better. We want a quick fix. We want a quick fix. And although there are things that we can do to strengthen our business, ultimately, a lot of it boils down to making sure that we're in the right place eternally, mentally, and spiritually, to be able to even attract the right things to our business. The last thing that I want to talk about is teaching through examples. Your business and your mission are bigger than your products. I mentioned in another podcast that my grandfather used to always say, I'm going to show you better than I can tell you. And that really stuck with me, because not only do I want to talk to you all and tell you experiences that I've had, but I want to be able to show you. And that was one of the reasons that I created my YouTube channel, was to be able to not only talk about the different things that I went through in business, but also to show you, because I always wanted to show the truth behind business and the fact that not everything is what it seems. Not everything is glamorous all the time. Not everything is happy all the time. Not everything is going to be smooth all the time, but there's lessons in everything that you go through. And there's hope in everything that we do. And there's the potential in everything that we do to not only impact us, but to impact everyone else. And so it's very important to make sure, especially when you have a business, that your heart and your mind are in good places, because we have the ability to influence other people. We have the ability to come into contact with other people. I mean, a lot of business owners, including myself, we're communicating with different people daily. And that's a big role to have. That's a big responsibility. And so sometimes we're not even knowing that the impact that we have or the experiences that we're having with other people are going to be impactful to the point that it touches their lives and change their lives in a way that benefits their family and benefits their future. However, that's the power that we have. Just by communicating, just by interacting. And so we always want to make sure that we're teaching through examples. I don't want to tell you to make sure that you're forgiving the people that have wronged you or backstabbed you in business, but then you see I'm not doing that. I don't want to tell you to make sure that you're staying consistent with your business, but then you see that I'm not being consistent. I don't want to tell you to make sure that you're more conscious about your business and not just thinking about a sale, but thinking about the longevity and making sure that you're building on the right principles and foundation. And I'm not doing that. I don't want to tell you to make sure that you get yourself right, but I'm not doing that. And so I want us all to make sure that we're growing the best that we possibly can, because through growth is where we actually see the results that we're looking for. We've tried our way. We've tried countless hours of mentoring and coaching and different things and consulting. And, some people are like, I still am not where I want to be. And not saying that everything happens overnight, because surely everything is a journey. I don't know what your life holds in the end, and neither do I know what my life holds. And I don't know all the plans that God has in store for me nor in store for you, but I do know that if you allow God to work through you, fulfillment comes. Whether you've reached your goal of $1 million or not, whether you've reached your goal this year of making 100K or not, because I'm okay with what God has blessed me with. And what he's blessing me with and the tools that he's instilling in me is worth more than anything that money can buy. The relationships that I'm coming into contact with and the people that I'm meeting are more beneficial than the new truck that I wanted. And so teaching through examples has its benefits and has its lessons. And not only is it going to benefit you, but it's going to benefit so many more. And that's what we've been learning on this podcast, that when our business grows and our mentality doesn't, a lot of times we're not able to handle the business any longer. It doesn't make sense any longer. It's not fulfilling any longer. And so we want to make sure that not only is our business growing, but we are too. I don't want to just stay stagnant when my business grows and flourishes. It's because what point is that? What point is that? What point is it if I gain the whole world but lose my soul? And so everything is connected and everything has a greater purpose than what we see. And although we talk about business, I never want to forget that everything that we do needs to be built on solid ground. And we can't even begin to talk about solid ground if we're not talking about our rock, who is God. Who is God? And so take it or leave it and say, hey, you know, I'm going to find my way. I've tried that way too. I can't even say I'm mad at you. I've tried that way too. And for some of us, it just takes us going through a couple of things and more journeys than others for us to realize that we did all of this to end back up in square one. We did all of this instead of listening. We did all of this instead of making sure that we were right. We did all of this instead of making sure that what we were doing was actually impacting everyone else in a positive way. And even though that may have been your intention, if we're not right, it won't come out the right way. So that's what I really want to talk about today. I really hope that you gain something from this podcast, because finding forgiveness in business has helped me grow. Finding forgiveness in business has changed my mentality. Finding forgiveness in business has not only helped my business, but it's helped my personal life as well. And so forgiveness is the theme of this podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode with Brittney Bundles. I don't want the conversation to end. I don't want our connections to end. If you do want to continue to stay connected, please reach out to me through my email, which is the letter Btalks, TALKS @yahoo.com. Follow me on social media. Instagram at Brittney_bundles, BRITTNEY_BUNDLES. Follow me on Facebook at Brittney Bundles, YouTube Brittney Bundles. And I will talk to you all in my next podcast.